men could really connect to the idea that taking personal responsibility leads to expansion and more love and what they want, then things would get easier. However, they have to stop looking at themselves and create those self-sabotaging beliefs that they're not enough until they get all their ducks in place. They're not going to be as worthy or lovable, to even recognize that women are looking at their character. They're looking at their character in their actions more than their words.
Hello, amazing humans. Welcome to episode number 276 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. We're making history today at the podcast. We have our first male guest. I know. Hang on to your hats and glasses. He is brilliant. His name is Dr. Ray Doktor. Yes, he's Doctor, which I love so much. But that's why we're calling him Dr. Ray. You know, we get pitched a lot on the podcast to have men as guests, and we usually say no, not because I don't love men. Men are wonderful. We know this, but I've worked really hard to make sure women have a place to go where they're completely heard and understood as far as what women go through as we launch businesses, what we go through as we have families, what we go through when there are certain stereotypes like you don't have kids, you're crazy, like whatever those things are. There are certain times we need other people who really understand that journey in order to heal and guide us. And I want to be one of those places for women. So the reason that we had Ray come on the podcast today is he is working very diligently to help the men on this planet heal. And I personally believe this is something that can have a massive effect on how we as women are doing business, how the world is working overall, how our sons feel as they grow, and the examples that men are giving to each other. Because much like it's going to take women talking to other women about the invisible unpaid work, right, that we all do to make everyone's lives easier and the recognition of that, we're also going to need men to work with other men to show them the example of men who can be assertive and confident and wonderful and still be warm, have integrity, and understand their own emotions. So this is about regulation on a global scale. And I was so excited to bring Dr. Ray in to talk about what we as women can do to support the men who are up for this transformation, and also what we may not know that men are going through. Dr. Ray is a best-selling author recognized by the team behind the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, with a doctorate in clinical psychology and over 28 years of experience as a life and relationship coach. Dr. Ray has shared stages with some of the most influential voices in personal development, including Marianne Williamson, Bruce Lipton, John Gray, and Eckhart Tolle. You may have seen him on the E! Channel, HBO, KCAL 9, Los Angeles. His insights have been featured in Psychology Today, Men's Health, and the Los Angeles Times. So as we are all expanding and growing, and you are learning how to make more money by listening to this podcast, today we're going to look at how we can sort of heal this battle between the sexes that has hit a fever pitch, but also heal ourselves and invite other people on the journey with us, because a rising tide lifts all boats. Pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Dr. Ray, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. You are making history here with us today. I am so excited to introduce you to all the girlfriends and have you here.
You know what's funny, Sarah, is what I didn't share with you is because, I don't know, maybe I was very close to my mom and was raised to be a little bit more sensitive, but not just that. My father was raised by a single woman. So I come from a lineage of strong women who raised boys. And from that, I have a lot of female friends. And in that, I have been invited to parties and events where I am the only man there. I'm not complaining.
I'm not rough on me. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not complaining, but it's, I would say, an area where I found myself many times. So here we go.
Well, good. Well, welcome. I'm really glad you're here, and the audience knows why you're here, which I'm really happy about, because I think we're up against a moment in history where there's so much we need to understand about male and female psyches and understanding more about how that's getting played out. But before we dive into that, I have to ask you, you have been doing this for a really long time. You have a list of degrees, you have all this experience in coaching, but really, as you started to hone in on relationships and on business and on helping people really drop hidden beliefs, why? Why is this, out of all the things you could have chosen, why is this what you do?
That's funny. Well, I had the perfect childhood, so I thought I want to. No kidding. Let's say that my path, it's shared in my book as well, where when I got my second, did I say second in the book? Maybe not. But anyway, my second DUI,
Mm.
private under the influence. I was 23. I saw a drug and alcohol counselor. His name was Jim. And he said, you know, Ray, I don't know if you have a drinking problem. He said, but you definitely create problems when you drink. He was right. And that
Yeah.
led to seeing a therapist,
Mm.
to start examining my emotions. And I became very attracted to psychology and supporting people.
Mhm.
And that just became my path. I don't know. I just fell right into it. I mean, I love people, and I had an astute way of kind of, you'll hear me hopefully in this interview. Maybe I'll share something brilliant and show up, but to understand how a person's mind is working, such as the typical person might like judge the behavior, or they'll say that's who he is or she is. But the way I'm able to break it down to make it easier for that person to digest this, say, toxic person, is that they have really poor coping mechanisms. That the way they deal with life, they have really poor strategies. And it's coming from unhealed trauma. It's coming from what they learned. It's coming from, what was modeled for them. Therefore, I have been able to rest in that compassionate space to see the moving parts that I would say turns a human being into looking like an angry person or being guarded and so forth. And I love talking about it. I love
Mhm.
sharing about it, but more than anything else, when I'm in that space coaching either an individual or a group, when you see that shift, when you feel it, when you see them start to cry, um, when their lives start to get better, that's what it's all about for me.
Mm. Just got chills. Yeah. It's like allowing, I think it sounds to me, if I can like mirror this back to you, it sounds to me like you really provide the space for
Mhm.
people to access their emotions. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
Yes, from a
Yeah.
non-judgmental
Mhm.
place, from a non-judgmental place.
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching some of your videos and I thought I was just so moved, specifically around, like I said, I really want to discuss the male female dynamics in this interview. But I think what really struck me was how there were several videos where you were holding your heart and your stomach and encouraging your client to do the same and really like tapping into the body, which I think is a big piece of this. Is that something that you've developed over time? Have you just found that to be more effective? What happens to somebody when they're
Well,
doing
I
that?
work as a somatic practitioner as
Mhm.
well. So, have you been around friends or even yourself where they've seen a therapist for years and they have a good narrative of why they've come to be, but nothing changes?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a lot of bypassing because
Mm.
whatever is going to create the change is in their unconscious mind, it's in their body. And so sometimes bypassing the head and moving into the heart and breathing and allowing the cellular memory to get kicked up, a person can identify to that core pain and be able to release it. Because what happens often too is that when people are traumatized, is that in order for them to still say get to work, to survive, that they might have to put that pain somewhere
Mm.
and they dissociate from it. And therefore, they're walking around, they seem successful, they're making money. Uh, Most people look at them like as if they have their act together, but down inside, they're feeling a lot of anxiety. They're not really enjoying life because they're separate from their heart, they're separate from their body.
Mm.
And so when we create that communion to God again by having them take a deep breath into his or her body and be able to connect maybe the face of their smiling child or the idea of working in their garden or just experiencing inner peace, when you marry those two together, you'll just see an integrated whole person.
Mm. Mm. We need a lot of those right now.
Yes.
I think as we look around the world, there's a lot that people aren't understanding why they're so angry or what's actually happening when it has not as much to do with the present moment as it does with what's not healed. Is that
Oh,
fair?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of people will, for example, we don't have to get deep into politics, but both sides, let's say, underneath that for both sides was Uncertainty. So as humans, universally, we all experience it. Doesn't matter who won or not, there's still uncertainty.
Mhm.
And if you are feeling uncertain about your life, it's going to overstimulate your nervous system and you can come off as a pissed off person. You might say, well, you said this to me, or just the way that you spoke to me, it made me feel this certain way. But if you're carrying like a level of uncertainty in your body, then more than likely you're going to be feeling also out of control.
Mm.
And when we feel out of control, we are in fear. And when we are in fear, we usually communicate our worst and we project it onto people, places, and things and
Mhm.
circumstances, including politics.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we've watched it. I don't think anybody
Mhm.
can like sit back and just for a second just try to pull back and watch. It's you can
Mhm.
see what's happening when we have a little bit more empathy and a little bit more space from it when we're not in the moment, right? You can really see what's happening almost on a global scale, I think, right? It's really happening everywhere. And so as we have an audience of women who are always looking to improve life and make things better, I have
Mhm.
5 brothers. I was the only girl, right? I'm like the opposite of you, right? I was always hanging out with guys, always the only woman in the room when I was in corporate. And I just want to ask you, as you have worked with men and you're helping them heal, which I'm so both grateful for and excited about, what is it do you think we as women don't know about what men are going through right now?
I'll answer that question, but I have a question for you.
You got it.
Were you raised as a tomboy? Just curious.
Ish. I mean, I can play every sport. I can score baseball. I can follow along with pretty much anything. And I think the biggest thing I learned, honestly, was, and this just happened to a friend of mine who has 3 boys. She just learned this by watching them as they're teenagers.
Mhm.
Is I remember watching my brothers come home crushed after a date, or if someone like said they didn't like them or they weren't interested. And I really got to see that side of it when I feel like so many of my friends saw the big jerk. He just like, and it's like, I think I saw that so many women, girls, whichever it happened as I grew older too, watched men as these offenders, as these hurters, harmers, right? These men that would just flake off or be afraid or not commit, whatever the things were. And what I got to see on the other side was actually how sensitive they were and how much it hurt them and how
Mhm.
many days they would go without talking, right? Because they didn't have the words and they weren't supposed to be sad. And so I feel like I really got to see that side of it. So not so much a
It's a really
tomboy, but
beautiful thing.
yeah.
That's a great thing because that's a great segue into even the word you used,
Mm,
crushed.
yeah.
So I'll start with that. I'm going to share about different types of men
Mm,
to answer this question better. So for men who, let's say, don't have confidence and they are insecure and they want to be in a partnership, the messages that they're getting is that if they approach a woman, they could offend them also. They can
mm,
come off as a creep.
mhm,
And so therefore, they're afraid to approach women. And yet there are stronger women who are not like complete feminists are saying, where are all the guys? I'm available. Please ask me out on a date. Own your balls. Like, come on, I'm dressed up. Then there are guys like myself who I used to lead all women's group up
mm,
until about 2011. I had about 1,000 entrepreneurs, very strong, what you call the boss babes,
mhm,
and they felt comfortable with me. And I also used to teach like Qigong and Tantra also with women. And I never was seen as a predator or or it was when I would share something from my experience,
mhm.
like from my clinical experience, that it would be well received as if I were an expert. But over the last 4 years, I have been told I'm mansplaining when I'm an expert. Like, wait a minute, to where I haven't been well received. I've been shut down.
Mm,
I am in a partnership with a strong woman who's a coach also. And she has had a couple women have reached out to her to question her judgment about me because they think that I might be narcissistic.
wow.
There's nothing I've ever said negative. I have just come off as a confident man
Mm,
with a certain level of certainty. But I'm also very assertive, and I'm direct. But it triggered stuff in them. And through Messenger, she got these conversations. And so even in our hometown, she supports a lot of women.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been here for 3 years and I will be moving soon. But I shared with her, I said, this is what it's like for me. I have a lot of female friends like you and your friends. I mean, in fact, I had an all ladies night at my house Friday where there's 3 women, there's 4 women and just me. Isn't that funny? And so there are a lot of women who are comfortable with me.
Mm.
But when I walk out and about, I have women look at me sometimes, they seem threatened,
Mm-hmm.
or it's as if there's already this preconceived belief of how I might show up or be.
Mm.
So I am treated in a way sometimes as if I could be one of those typical toxic Harvey Weinstein type of men.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I got
there's that
that.
experience too.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, I would say, the conservative men who, maybe even want the 1950s housewife or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Of course, they're pissed off because they're thinking that this other side is all feminism and so forth, versus women who want to be able to express themselves and show up and so forth. But they're just too narrow-minded to understand that. And so, those are different types of men. And in general, there's kind of like a fight with the sexes.
Mm-hmm.
There's this fight. And so there's a lot of uncertainty and men are treated a certain way and they are afraid. However, with that being said, regardless of the types of men I shared, is that most men are not doing the inner work. They are not doing the inner work in like they want the easy path. They'll seek pleasure over pain with even the knowingness it's only going to lead to pain again. So they make poor choices, or I can do it myself. I can figure it out. And they don't.
Yeah.
And so I understand with women, like what I share with, like on my Facebook page often, it's interesting how the men shut down with me. And it's things like this. When you hold space for your woman's emotions and you just allow her to be in her heart without getting angry or telling her what to do, but to really see her, she'll build trust in you. And that could lead to the bedroom, or it could lead to this.
Right.
Well,
long-term trust. Yeah.
I'll get men say, well, how about when she does just defensive? And I notice with posts, whenever I use the word men, it's typically not women going, hey, what about this and that? It's men starting their bullshit with me too.
Okay.
And yeah, acting like children. So I'm a straight man, but this last 2 years, particularly where I live, it is the most feminine place I've ever been. Ashland, Oregon.
Okay. Got
Very
it.
in. And other people will tell you the same thing. I've never met the most feminine men. They're insecure. They're like, all the women here will say, where are all the men? Where are all the men? Like a lot of women will move out of here because they can't attract a partner. There literally are no real strong men. And they'll describe this. What we get is we get the one man who is and this is generalizations. It's not to make fun at about anyone. It's the man who has the long hair. He's like the hippie. He's a philosopher, but he can't get up before 9 a.m. When you can talk to him, but he's going to bring out his journal and want to share that as well. So, a woman who wants I know a lot of strong women, and I know I'm speaking to them right now. I know if you met the right guy, you would soften. I know that you would allow him to do things.
Yeah.
I get that. But if he's not shown up, why? Why give up that independence? I hear you. So they say, I don't want this kind of poet. It's great that he's sensitive, but like if someone were breaking a house, I think he would run in the bathroom and close the door. Then they said, then we got the fishermen with like in their picture on, say, on Bumble, he's holding a salmon.
The dead fish. Yeah.
Yeah. So they said, where's the man in the middle? A guy who actually has good work ethics and who is sensitive, right? I think we all like want the Frankenstein bride or partner.
Where's my combo? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but men are not doing the work. Men are not doing, most of them are not doing the work. And I'm in a high profile men's group. And when I say that, it's people like the founder of the Rolling Stones to like all the people who are in tech, who are creating AI software and so forth. And they had there's a lot of programs in there for men to do the inner work. And I noticed they're always empty. And the only ones
Wow.
that are filled is everything has to do with AI and making more money, or all the stuff that have to do with their body, such as getting more testosterone, more young, to live
Mhm.
longer, to look younger, and that. So all they care about is performance versus doing inner work.
Fascinating. Yeah. Well,
And
I
that's
think
not
that's
all
what
men, but that's, yeah, yeah,
I think that's what we as women are sensing too. And I think that's
yes.
I literally so I genuinely wanted to talk to you about that specifically because it is
Mhm.
that feeling
Yeah.
of, oh my gosh, I've done so much work. Are you meeting me in this world? Where'd you go? Right. That's sort of a feeling that I think you're saying women are describing. Where are you? And that goes all the way down to taking the garbage out, all the way up to doing incredible inner work. Where are you? And at the same time, I think what I'm hearing you say, and let me know if I have this right, is that the fear among men of doing it wrong or being offensive or having their place taken, I think is another thing I'm hearing, like this displacement, like feminism somehow means anti-man, like that's been collapsed as opposed to rising women up to where men have been. It's like we have to kill you in order to, it's like, wow, how did that idea take place? But I think that's sort of what we're sensing is the uncertainty you were talking about is causing such a level of insecurity and fear, which is not allowing progress for men. Does that, let me know if I got that wrong.
Yes, but they're also playing into victimhood. I'll give you
Oh,
an
interesting.
example. This
Okay.
literally happened last weekend where I blocked a friend who I went to high school with. And this
Mm,
guy was he's a football coach as well, good looking guy.
yeah.
It's funny, he was like a really clean cut preppy kid when we were in high school, and now he's a biker. But he coaches also, handsome
Mm,
guy and a Scorpio. That's what's funny about him. I remember that because he's one of the only guys I've kept in contact with in high school because, like a Scorpio, he's a little bit deeper.
mm,
And
mm.
he was one of the guys that got offended by my post. Like it was strange. And I saw this dialogue and I sent him a text message. I didn't want to do this on Messenger.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
it was, I'm trying to understand your communication because it sounds like you're attacking. It sounds like it's far removed from even the posts. I just want to know. I wanted to be open. And let's just say, even though I said, I adore you, I
Hmm.
love you, and I even helped this guy when his relationship, his marriage, 18-year marriage ended.
Wow.
I bought him a book. I sent him recordings. So, like, hey, these are ways that you can help yourself. Well, 10, 15 years later, I think this is where we are now. He went into a competitive place. It was really strange.
Mm.
And he said, I have been married for 18 years. What is the longest time you've gotten married? You've been married or with a partnership. I'm like, I
Wow.
wouldn't actually brag about that because your wife left you. I didn't say that. She didn't feel seen or heard. She didn't know who she was married to.
Mm.
But he kept
Mhm.
coming at me, trying to one up me because he was insecure. And
Mm.
he couldn't even hear that I said, I love you. I'm here for you.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and like as if I were the enemy. And I just could not continue this communication. But what I got from that was another experience of like, wow, if I were a woman and dating this guy, no wonder why I wouldn't be with him. To wow, he would actually take my sentences and say, because you said this means you're doing this. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
I shouldn't even have a conversation with you. Like you have me figure it out. And I'm just seeing all of these red
Mm.
flags, this communication.
Mm.
And then I kind of go, oh, no wonder why you're still single. No wonder why, you know what I mean? And I'm not judging it, but I don't know how he can create a sustainable relationship with a high quality woman. But even with a woman who had not done her work, if a man were to show up that way, they wouldn't feel seen or heard. It would probably be a woman who hasn't done inner work and she would get intertwined with his unhealed trauma. Then
Sure.
it'd be a trauma bond relationship.
Absolutely. No, you can like watch that unfold. Absolutely. I was thinking that as you were saying it, because it's
Mhm.
so easy to make someone defensive, right? What are you doing?
Yes.
Why did you do that? No, I saw you doing so. And what? And then people get into this reactive mode, and you can watch that in relationships. So I so appreciate this example because I think it really is what so many women are experiencing at the moment of like, I know I really appreciate you said men are like, I don't want to, how do I, what do I don't want to offend. And women are having the same experience of like, God, I say anything and there's an explosion. What can we do to really help? I don't want to say solve isn't the right word because there's nothing to solve, but how do we help heal this? How do we support? How do we start to have conversations with each other that actually interests men in doing some of the inner work, to have them see that it's actually safe to do that and that it's strong to do that? It doesn't mean they're weak or not masculine, all the terrible things that I heard my brothers say to each other as they were growing up, right? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you just took away all of his ability to feel anything he's ever going to feel. It was like, oh no, right? How do we get that back? How can we support more men in finding that space for themselves?
Well, I'm going to share something I've said before,
Mm,
and usually my female friends love it. And one of them is that I've actually shared like a meme and said, you know, if you want to get a woman hot or wet, take personal responsibility.
so true. It's so
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
It's 100% true. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
like the sexiest thing a man can do is be like, oh, I'm sorry, I did that. It's like, oh my God, yay.
even for me,
It really is.
even
Mhm.
for me, as a straight guy, like,
Yeah,
come
it's
on.
so
Yeah,
great. Well, it displays such power
yeah.
and such
So
integrity. Yeah.
that's where I'll start for whatever reason. So first off, this didn't just start recently. This has been going on for thousands of years. And I would say that so many men are very much immersed in the collective narrative of competition and
Hmm.
perfectionism.
Hmm.
And so therefore, I know that when, and these are generalizations, but when women might share with their partner, or even with each other, it's not where they've come to a conclusion or they're expecting a conclusion. It might be, I don't know, the way you spoke to me. And if they come from an I statement, they might say, it didn't feel good. I didn't feel safe.
Hmm.
Now, that communication to a person who understands that, whether it's a masculine person or a feminine person, is recognizing that person's sharing how they feel in that moment. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean you're in a doghouse. It doesn't mean that they're right and you're wrong,
Right.
or that they're going to stop being with you. It's kind of like a now moment expression. And I have worked with men who've called me in reaction, desperate, saying, my wife, my girlfriend, who they've been with for 5 to 10 years, she told me she's had enough and she's going to leave. And she feels this, she feels that. And I'll slow them down and I'll share with them, what if she was just sharing the poetry of her heart in that moment, in that rage? What if that rage is part of the hurt that she's really in and you're not showing up and you're not standing up? What if those words have very little to do with what she's feeling?
Mm,
Hands down, almost every time it's worked where if I can help the man say, I must have hurt you and I am so sorry. Not telling her to not leave him, to
right.
say, for you to get this mad and us being in this relationship for a long time, I must have really been doing something that I want to look at. Things
Mm,
like that. Like I said, hands down, it has worked almost every time. Where it hasn't worked is this, let's say if that guy cheated, okay? Well, little more
mm,
challenging, okay?
mhm.
So if men could really connect to the idea that taking personal responsibility leads to expansion and more love and what they want, then things would get easier. However, they have to stop looking at themselves and create those self-sabotaging beliefs that they're not enough,
Right.
that until they get all their ducks in place, they're not going to be as worthy or lovable, to even recognize that women are looking at their character. They're looking
Mhm.
at their character in their actions more than their words. They're looking at their character and their actions more than words, but also more than the mistakes that had happened. And what that means is this, is that they're not taking the man's face and go, stick it in dog shit and go, oh, I want you to feel shitty because it makes me feel good when you feel shitty.
Right.
They're basically saying that I'm here to improve also. I want to grow with you also. And
Mhm.
therefore, when you take personal responsibility, I'm excited again. When you own these things, I want to talk to you again.
Yes.
That's it. Let's move forward. But what happens, men go into denial. They
Mhm.
go into saying, well, you're not perfect. And
That's
of course,
exactly
the
right.
woman's saying, well, what are you talking about? I never said I was perfect.
Right.
But if we're in a relating ship, that means we're relating to you, then
It's
we're
in
going to
the
share
water.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to share with you in real time. what's going on, because if not, it's going to turn to resentment. You're going to wonder why I haven't been having sex with you. You're going to wonder why I'm not smiling as much. You're going to wonder why I'm going out with my friends more often because I'm not going to play into victimhood. So,
Mhm.
now as far as what women could do who are listening to this, first, what I want them to hear is this: the man has to do the inner work,
Mhm.
because no matter how many compliments you give him, like I shared, I told my friend, I adore you, I love you a couple of times. He did not hear me because he
Right.
just loved himself.
Hmm.
So ultimately, men have to start loving themselves, regardless of what's going on out there. So even though I could share with you that I'm afraid to show up because of women, to I can't get a date because women are angry at men. That's bullshit. That's me surrendering. It's that I need to recognize something in myself that needs to be healed, or I need to build my confidence so I know that I'll meet the right person. This is the bottom line. So I don't join the status quo. Even in my business, we haven't talked about that, but you know, there are people who are scraping right now, and there's people also who are making a shitload of money.
Right. Right.
You
As
know?
always.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
As always. Yes.
yeah. Yeah. So even though I share this, there are high quality men out there. I don't know, maybe it's like 8%. I don't know. I'm just making up these numbers, okay?
Right. But
But
you meet them, you work with
yeah,
them, you have an
yeah.
idea. Yeah.
Well, what it is, the men who work with me typically are in that percentage, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, but women, the way that they can support it, it would be that language. So what's happened often, I
Mm.
see marriages is that women, because I don't know, because they're natural caregivers, I would say this is that I find women, the feminine, to be more nurturing, more
Hmm.
empathetic, to where you can move into compassion fatigue, to where you're now what you call your husband or boyfriend energetically and emotionally feels like a child.
Yes.
And so that could be a turn off.
Yes.
But what ends up happening a lot with, notice, even with my girlfriend, because her mother, well, hell, I'll just bring it up. Her father was died of AIDS. He was in a closet. She did not know her father
Oh,
was gay.
oh my God. I'm sorry.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, talk about
yeah.
betrayal,
Oh,
the
right.
mask.
On so many levels. Yeah.
Her mother was literally an ex-nun,
Oh
and
my God.
she was an ass kicker, and she was the one that moved
Oh,
into the masculine because her father was
wow.
outrageous. Spent all the money, like they lost money. Her
Mhm.
mother just died this year. She discovered that she put aside a bunch of money she didn't know, which made her cry like, "Oh my God, my mom protected us." It's
Mhm.
why she divorced her father,
Mhm.
because to protect the money for the kids.
Mhm.
Isn't it? But she was more in her masculine. So my girlfriend Nicole
Mm.
communicates that way sometimes, and it doesn't feel good. And it doesn't mean that it's not come from good intentions, but when you talk to man, such as you should be doing this, how
Mhm.
about try this more in ahead, then he can feel spoken down to. It might create a power struggle. It might hit up against that part of themselves where they already don't feel good enough.
Mm. Mm.
They're competing with themselves and others. So communication that usually works, I would say better with men would be this. I was when they do that one thing that's great. I feel so turned on when you mowed the lawn. You know, I trust your process. I love who you are, and I know that you maybe feel the same way, but I know you can do so much better. You're not saying that the man is a loser, but
Right.
it's come from an I statement of an
Mhm.
invitation to his heart, to what he's maybe already doing right, and then to create a bridge to something else. And that's it. It's, yeah, again, it's even
Yes.
this. It's like it's come from that really feminine place of vulnerability. And you might even say this, I really want to be with you. I
Mhm.
love everything about you, but I'm afraid of where we're going to go because I don't know. You keep changing your mind. You seem uncertain. And I love
Mm.
you, but I also love myself more. And I want to
Mhm.
trust our direction. And if I'm going to surrender to you in this relationship, I want to make sure I trust where the ship's going. And
Mhm.
I don't have that faith right now. I love you, but where we're going, I don't feel safe. So if you hear how I said that,
Mhm.
I don't know if men will hear that, but you're not telling him he's a bad person. You're saying
Yeah.
how you're living your life or the direction you're going. I don't trust.
Got it. No,
Difference
I
between
think
who,
that's huge. I think that's
yeah,
actually really important. And it is that stance. I mean, again, not to relate male-female relationships to mothers and sons, right? I don't mean to do that, but there is this stance I feel came out in me when I had a son, right? Is this, come on, like, let's go. Like, you have more in you. There's so much here. Like, keeping that stand for him. And I don't always say it that way, but just that stand that I know what's in there and I know you can access it. That faith that I feel like, I don't know, I just think that does come from that feminine side of like, I really see who you are. And what I see isn't matching right here.
Yes.
It's that
It's
feeling.
aligned with your
Yeah.
authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay. So really inviting into the conversation rather than dictating to. It's that. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one step. And the other one might be more personal because I've experienced this, but I don't. And that is where if there, this is the part I can trigger your listeners. And that is if you're a woman and you're angry towards your father, boyfriend, husband, co-parent, just remember that there are also good guys. And there's good guys like me who are trying to support the guys who don't know how to do things. And this has happened, Sarah, where I will share information that's positive and it's about men taking personal responsibility, not acting like a baby. And I've seen women show up, not a lot, where they start trying to protect this guy, like as if he can't handle it. And I'm not yelling at him. It's a post. It's social media like comments. And they feel the need to save this man. And yet he is the one who's struggling with himself because he lacks confidence or assertiveness, or he plays into victimhood. And you just now coddled him. You enabled him to not step up as an example. And I've seen that, and it happens. It's where, and I understand this, they might not know who I am. I even have shared positive stuff with about how a man can show up. And I've had women say, you must have an unhealthy relationship to your masculinity.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So like, wow. And so you understand there's a version that women experience also where there's men telling women what they should do with their body, why they think a certain way, to mansplaining or whatever you want to call of, because, you know, there's men that are not really listening to you. They are more interested in what they think, and they'll share with you 2 pages of their, you know, thesis or something.
Yes.
Well, there are female versions of that also.
Yes.
That come at men like me.
Yes. And I believe that because, right? I mean, it's the hurt people syndrome, right?
Yeah.
But so often for a woman to be successful or to be seen or heard, she has to turn into a man, meaning that male energy, not actually, right? We're not talking about transgender, but I mean, internally, like actually like taking on those traits, and we watch it happen. And those are the same women who attack other women for being ambitious or doing, you know what I mean? And so there is healing on both sides that is so needed. And I think that's why conversations like this are so important. And I so appreciate you, one, having the conversation with all of the amazing girlfriends who are listening, but also with the men that you're having the conversation with, because I do think that it is going to take men talking to men in a way that I think isn't going to be heard the same way. And I think watching a man who has been able to remain masculine and assertive and confident and still have access to his emotions is the example that so many men are looking for, to see if it's safe to do, to see if they'll still be accepted in the world if they do this work. And so I just really want to personally thank you, right? Because I do hear all the time, all men suck, right? I hear it all the time. And it's like, where are they? Like that same thing that you've been doing. So it's so great to know there is another man out there calling to men to do this work and to pull at their higher selves. It's exciting. And I am truly hopeful for how we can heal this between the sexes.
Thank you. Well, I come from, so first off, my grandmother and great aunt were friends with Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh my gosh.
They were part of the women's suffrage movement.
Ooh.
My mother in the 1950s, she is Okinawan. She passed away. She walked away from her husband, which women didn't do in the 50s because supposedly he was a pussy. She used her language about it, but it sounded like a wussy, and they were living with his mother, and it was really challenging. She lost custody of her boy. He had to be given to the husband because that was the culture.
That's
So
right.
she got remarried to my father, and both of them were older. So it was their second marriage. My father divorced an alcoholic woman and took two kids on in the 1950s. My father was a solo
Wow.
parent, also raising boys. And so he
Wow.
learned how to move into that space, but not just that. His father died, my father, when he was two. So his mother became an entrepreneur. She sold newspapers in front of Yankee Stadium during the Great Depression. She also became the second female sheriff deputy in the Bronx in 1908.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah, that's my,
It's quite a lineage there, right?
yeah, it
Wow.
keeps going on. And then
Wow.
so what's interesting is that I'm 55 and I became a father at 45.
Mm.
The mother of my child was pregnant and had my son without me even knowing. My
Oh my
son showed
gosh.
up when he was 5.5 months old.
Oh
My
my
son
gosh.
lives with me full time now. I am a solo parent and I've raised my son on my own like single women out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I've had the experience what it's like to be a mom and father. Is that interesting? Like
Yes.
I had the experience of what women go through to even the
Mhm.
idea like when men would say, "Oh, you just raise kids." Oh my God, it's fucking hard.
It's the worst that
Oh,
way.
yeah.
I mean the
Yeah, yeah.
worst as in like it's not appreciated. Not that the work is the worst, but that
Yeah.
response is the worst because it is, oh my God, it is a 24/7 nonstop job. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I understand that empathetically.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I have that experience. And now his mother lives 2 miles down the road. I moved her up here. I got a second home and she
Great.
lives in it. And she has a partnership. She has a new baby with Max's half sister, and we get along really well. And, I showed up. My father showed me how to show up. And he was also Marines for 30 years.
I think what
So
I'm
that,
hearing too, that I think is so important, Ray, and I hope this helps everybody listening when looking to communicate in a different way so that the communication actually lands on the other side, right? Like, regardless of what it is, like, how can I communicate in a way this is heard is what I like to call the veil of ignorance, right? It's this idea, it's actually a political idea that we create laws and we treat each other with an understanding that we all live with veils of ignorance and that we
Mhm.
should look at the least of these, right? From the Bible, if you want, but from the least of these, like, what is that life experience like? And most of us have a veil of ignorance to what that is. And when it comes to the sexes, I think we naturally, of course, we do. For me to walk through the world as a white woman, right? I'm going to have a certain experience. For you to walk through the world as a white man, you're going to have a certain experience. And it takes moments like that where we cross over and the veil of ignorance is dropped. And we're able to actually see what life can be like on the daily for someone else, that the level of compassion and empathy will naturally grow. But then
Yeah.
taking that and using it to communicate in a way so that the communication can actually be heard. And that's what I'm hearing that your life experience has given you inside your work. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I have
Yeah.
many women say that I love how you articulate, you know, your words. I like how you share our experiences collectively.
Yeah.
So I do get that. And yes, it's interesting. Even when I used to go to the playgrounds, I don't go there that much anymore. And I was connecting with whether they were married or not. There was always suspicion that there was this dude that looks like me with a kid walking around a playground. And people have asked me, like, are you able to get play dates? I'm like, dude, or I mean, it's not. I go, there's suspicion. I go, the husbands look at me and they
Mhm.
seem insecure. Like, no, it's a lot harder for me to be a single male than it might be for a woman
Mhm.
because of this collective narrative that men always, they're not transparent. They always want sex or something.
Mhm.
And I get it.
Mhm.
And I've experienced it,
Mhm.
I mean, majorly over the
Yeah,
last 10 years, raising my son.
I believe you. I
Yeah.
got this. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Well, Ray, listen, we could probably talk for another couple of hours, but I want to thank you for coming on the show today. If someone is like, oh my God, I need me some more Dr. Ray, where do you like to hang out? Where can people find you?
The easiest is my website, which is raydoktor.com. That's my real last name. And I know you'll have the link below. And I also have a book called All It Takes Is One. I became a bestseller and it's affiliated with the people who, did Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Love it.
Really, really simple. I mean, if you go on Amazon and look at the reviews, it's a book plus workbook, and
Mhm.
it just cuts to the chase of like helping you understand the structure of consciousness to be able to see life from this perspective you're talking about, compassion, to be able to drop our, say, veils of ignorance. By the way, I love those nickel words. I'm going to use that.
And it's a great, because you see it. When you say it, you go, oh, I can get that. I have a veil of ignorance. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. In the book I shared, I just remember this. By the way, when I wrote the book, I forgot everything. After editing, and you just kind of get in the process of like promoting it, I'm like, and I went on my first podcast. I was like, oh crap. I'm like, what did I say?
What did I say? It's so true. I know there are people listening who are like, dude, that's happened to me. Yeah.
Oh,
it's so true. It's so true.
There's a chapter here where I talk about how my father, who loved dogs, and I don't know if he started saying this because he didn't want me to feel hurt or bummed out that I couldn't get a dog. But what it was is I had allergies that were worse when I was younger. They're gone now. So he would always say to me, it's cruel for a dog if you're in an apartment. A dog needs a backyard. He would just instill this. And I wrote about this in my book where, like, in my 20s, I was sitting at the table with my parents and my dad said it again. I said, bullshit. I go, you take dogs for walks. You can, it was like I had clarity.
Yes.
I had the veil of ignorance going on there,
yes.
and I believed it, but I challenged my dad on it.
That is so great, by the way. Like, oh my gosh, I want, like, everybody listening, I hope goes, I'm going to do that about what my parents said about money. I'm going to do that about what my best friend said about love. I'm going to do like, because, we just kind of eat what's given to us on the table. And there's so much more that's available when we start examining. It's so good. So good.
Sarah, there's two chapters dedicated to that purely. There are 11 top influencers people go through to break all those hidden beliefs. And then there's a release ceremony, which you can read it, but you also can get it on my website, where it goes to all those negative collective beliefs, such as, I know there's some women here who haven't had a child, and they feel they've experienced less of a life and not become a mother. Yes. There are men who are not listening to this, so we can talk shit about them. No, just kidding. No.
Not really, but I know what you're saying. Yes. Yeah.
I'm kidding. Love you, man. It's that there are men over 40 who don't own their own home, and don't feel enough. Mm-hmm. Little things like that. So I go through, I think there's 28 like sentence stems where you look at the most common things we've come to believe that's absolute bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we got to examine them, right? The unexamined life is like, it's almost not worth living. So, oh my gosh. Well, Ray, listen, thank you so much. For all of you listening, there's going to be links to his book and all of his social media and his website underneath this video if you're watching on YouTube, and it will be in the show notes if you're listening in. Dr. Ray, thank you so much for having this conversation with the girlfriends today.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.